This is episode 18 with Caitlin McCall. Welcome to the Eco-Conscious Diver Show. I'm your host, Caitlin, PADI Scuba Instructor, Scientific Diver, and Science Communication Specialist. I'm here to remind you that being eco-conscious is cool. Learning about the environment can be fun, and climate change isn't a dirty phrase. Each week, I'll be getting up close and personal with thought leaders from around the globe as your weekly dose of motivation so you can create epic change in your own life and become the best version of yourself possible. Are you ready to dive? What's up, everybody? If you're listening to this right now, this is an opportunity to join in with the eco-conscious diver community. Make sure to subscribe on the website to stay up to date on future episodes, merchandise, events, conservation retreats, and our newest unique online course titled A Complete Introduction to Marine Conservation. You can gain 2 project-aware PADI specialties from the comfort of your home. Head over to the website www.eco-consciousdiver.com. This episode is packed with insight into a marine ecologist and expedition diver who is working in many different facets of conservation. I hope you'll enjoy this podcast with Rachel Crane. Hey Rachel, how you doing?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have you on today. You've done so many incredible things. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and kind of tell you a little bit more. So yeah.
Yeah. So of course we'll jump into our intro question, which is, what is your favorite marine species and why?
Oh, this question is so hard for me. Sharks and rays were probably my first love, but somehow baleen whales wormed their way in as well. But at the very top is the very smallest. Nudibranchs are my favorite. They're little mollusks or sea slugs, and they come in every color and weird shape of the rainbow. And they're kind of like Pokemon. They're so crazy little aliens, and I squeal and dance whenever I find one underwater, and they're super photogenic. So I love them. And they've also recently been discovered that they could be indicators for climate change in certain ecosystems. So they're looking at them as being utilized as indicator species for the health of localized little marine ecosystems.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Do you see a lot of them in Key Largo, where you are now?
I don't see as many in Key Largo. I have definitely found them, and if you wanted to see a lettuce sea slug, I know where I'd go look for them. I don't see a lot of them out on the reefs, but I have definitely found them.
It's funny, I love lettuce sea slugs.
Yeah.
When I did my underwater photography course in Key West, we just a lot of what we did was take pictures in this little training area, and there were so many, and I probably have a folder of 100 different lettuces. They're so cute.
I love them so much. They're just so pretty and interesting, and I can spend a whole dive just hanging out with them.
They are. They're so cute. Awesome. So, I know that you've got a lot of really big headlines on your resume. It's really impressive. I mean, just to name a few, Lindblad Expeditions, Nat Geo, Coral Restoration Foundation, Dive Heart Training. So I really want to hear your story. Just take us through how you got here.
Okay, yeah. It's kind of a weird and crazy story, so I'll try to go through some highlights for you. I was homeschooled on a farm, alpaca farm in upstate New York, so landlocked. I ended up finding out I wanted to be a vet, found out I was allergic to all the cute fuzzy critters, so ended up going to the ocean. I went to college in Maine I went to Unity College, which is in Unity, Maine. I double majored in bachelor's degrees, so I have marine bio and ecology. That way I can say I am a marine ecologist. After that, I did graduate without a job because, marine world is insane to get something in. So I lifeguarded for a summer and then got a position with Mote Marine Laboratory. They're in Sarasota, Florida, and they also have an office in Summerland Key in the Florida Keys. So I was in their coral disease ecology lab. So I was doing a lot of microbiome stuff. But I realized that while I enjoyed doing the lab work, I wasn't getting to see outside and the actual corals that I was doing all this stuff on and be in the ocean. So when the grant funding ran out, I decided to be a dive instructor and get myself underwater back in a happy place. And that's where I found that I liked educating a lot. And I'd been a tutor in college, so I already knew I kind of liked it, but I found out I really liked it. So I got burnt out. I actually dove so much I didn't like diving anymore, which is crazy to think about. So my boyfriend and I took up one of our friends' advice and decided to start working seasonally for national park systems. And we got a gig in Glacier Bay, Alaska. So we left the Florida Keys. I left Key Largo, went to Alaska, just draw a diagonal line, drop a pin, how far away can we go? And that's southeast Alaska, so it's very similar climate to Seattle, but colder. Still very wet. It's like the glacier factory, like the top glacier factory in the world. So went up there, worked as an operations manager for a lodge. So nothing diving, nothing marine, just was next to the ocean and the glaciers and the mountains. But our property was right on the ocean. And we had lots of little expedition cruise ships that would dock there. And so that's where I saw my very first Lindblad expeditions, a National Geographic ship. And I was just like, what is that? So the guests and the staff come aboard or come off the ship to tour the park and do trails. So I got to talk to a lot of people. And we were basically snowbirds for 2 years. So the park in Alaska is only open Memorial Day to Labor Day, so summer. And then we'd come back to the Keys and be dive instructors and just chill in the Keys. So we did that for 2 seasons, during which we also got our captain's licenses. And then summer of 2017, we stayed to be captains. We're like, all right, we got our licenses. Let's actually use them and get familiar. So went full tilt back into recreational scuba diving companies to drive the big boats. And we were going to, do that for a year and then maybe go back to Alaska. But Hurricane Irma happened in September of 2017. So we've stayed in the Keys, but it was great because that kind of brought us towards Coral Restoration Foundation. So they approached us after the hurricane looking for a contract captain. So my boyfriend and I both actually took positions with them to drive their boats. So now I was back next to science, still driving boats. So I was like, all right, this is good. I like this. I still love corals. At some point in there, right before I went to Alaska, I also got hired by Dive Heart, which is another nonprofit. They focus on taking children, adults, and veterans with disabilities scuba diving. It's a training agency. We can talk more about it. But I ended up working for them, and that's a remote position before remote positions were cool. So I had that, and I had CRF. I taught a few dive master courses for some of the Coral Restoration Foundation interns. And I would take their entire little semesters because they kind of take 12 months in a year and divide it by 3. So they have little 4-month semesters, if you will. So I didn't want to have any outstanding students when I finally decided to put my name in the hat for Lindblad Expeditions and National Geographic. And once I'd finished, or I was almost done with my latest round of dive masters, I applied. 6 months later, I heard back. So I finally heard back from them, and 6 months apparently is a normal amount of time for them to get back to you. And I got hired, so I was able to add traveling the world as an undersea specialist, naturalist, expedition diver, and I also get to captain their little Zodiac boats. So took all the things that I liked. Now I was, not only was I next to science, we were doing more citizen science, and I'm in a place where I can talk to people about science that actually like care and want to listen. And then if I'm not out traveling the world, I'm home in Key Largo, where I still work remotely for Dive Heart, and I captain boats for CRF. So I think that's highlights.
That's the perfect setup. I love it. And you're definitely bound to never get bored doing all that stuff, right?
Yeah, very true. I'm always learning or studying something for someone.
That's so cool. So tell me just a little bit about, whenever you go out for an expedition, what all does that entail? I mean,
yeah. So it's pretty crazy. So Lindblad Expeditions is an expedition cruise company, very small ships, like way less than 200 people. Some of our ships only have 60 guests maximum. They're partnered with National Geographic. So Lindblad owns the ship, and National Geographic works with them to offer lots of programs and expeditions, and I'm part of the field staff on board. So I'm not crew. I'm not a deckhand or a stewardess or the captain of the vessel or anything like that. I'm an extra person. And there's typically about 10 field staff, and these are your expedition leaders and your naturalists. There's a National Geographic photographer. There's a videographer on board. And then I'm part of the undersea team. So within the field staff, there's an undersea team, which means I scuba dive. So they're global. So we go all over the world, but I've spent most of my time in Alaska because I'd already lived there. So that's where they wanted to start me. And I will leave Key Largo, get to Alaska. I will join a ship, and then we'll get guests on board. And then every day is kind of different. We do little expeditions off the ship. So sometimes I might be doing a Zodiac cruise. And Zodiacs are just inflatable tiny boats with a little outboard tiller motor. So as a captain, I can drive those. So I might be doing a little tour on the Zodiac and bringing guests, up to the front of a glacier. So like driving in ice, we'll watch the glacier for a while. And I might just be taking them to a beach where we're going to hike. I might lead like a tide pool hike. So we'll go look at all the little critters in the tide pools. We also have kayaking and paddleboarding, so I might be doing that with guests. And then like the really cool part, sometimes all of the other naturalists and staff, they take the guests to do something. And while they're all gone, me and then I'll have a buddy, a partner, we jump in a separate Zodiac and we go scuba diving in these crazy places. And we have a video camera and we go down underwater, and some of the places we go you've never been to. We're like, yeah, that looks like a safe little cove. Let's go there and see what's under there. And no one's ever dove there before, ever. So we get to go down, see what's there. We take video of it, and then we bring that video back on board, and we really rough edit it and learn. If we don't know what these weird critters are, we have to try to figure out what they are. And then we'll show the guests that video later, like in the evening or the next day. We'll show them like, hey, we went diving. This is what's underwater. So that's really cool. And we also prepare presentations. So if we're doing a day where the ship just needs to get from point A to B, so we're on board all day, then there'll be presentations throughout the day. So we have pre-prepared presentations on whatever we think is cool in that area that we'll give. And that's kind of what we do.
That's so cool. And who are the people that normally go on the expeditions? Is it like the paying customers?
Yeah. So, man, it's a huge variety. I've had little like retired peoples. I've had Grammies and Grampies that this is what they're doing with their retirement. I've had entire families, very young kids, traveling the world. And yeah, pretty much like anybody that you can think of, they'll go on it. So I've had a lot of diversity in the people that I've had as guests.
That's cool. And have they ever like shown stuff that you've done on Nat Geo?
No, they haven't for me specifically. I think there might be photos of me that's used in some of the promotional like emails and stuff, but nothing
Cool.
on like National Geographic, the channel.
It's still really cool though. You're like one of the faces of it. I love that. So cool.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, obviously, probably a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast are people who are interested in, one of their long-term goals would be to be able to be on a Lindblad expedition. What, tips or tricks would you give them to kind of help them possibly get chosen for something like that if they were to apply?
Yeah, so absolute number one, most important thing, if you want to be part of the undersea staff, they will not even look at you twice if you do not have your dry suit specialty and you do not have cold water experience. So you have to get cold.
I'm out.
But they pay me to dive in Alaska and Antarctica and Greenland and Iceland. Like, so cool. It's worth it. It's not something I'd ever plan a vacation for, but they're stunning, stunning places, and I'm going to go there. And if you're going to pay me to do it, then yes, sign me up. So You've got to get cold. You've got to go dry. And then after that, the next best thing you can do for yourself is get a captain's license. And it doesn't have to be like I have 100-ton, which is a lot of time on the water to qualify for that. And you don't have to have 100. You can just have the minimumist one, which is an OUPV 6-pack, which means you can take like 6 passengers. But especially for our USA flagged vessels, we need people to have captain's licenses or else you can't drive the Zodiacs with guests in them. So having that certification, that skill makes you far more valuable. And I've actually been able to subcontracts because life happens. Everyone, sometimes you have to bow out of a contract for a minute. And they're like, we need somebody. It's got to be somebody with a captain's license. And so if you don't have that, it's like you're automatically cut out from taking some of those sub shifts. So that's like the top 2 things I would say that are going to set you apart. Everything else they can teach. Like I am actually that person that gets to say I worked for National Geographic with 0 underwater camera and filming experience. Didn't even own a camera besides my phone. And so that's something I'm getting to learn. I'm getting to learn from incredible professionals. But that was not something I had focused on. So they preferred the fact that I had been a cold water diver and that I was a captain. Those were their like, yep, green light.
Wow. So, I mean, it can really be a variety of skills, that you're looking for, and that they're willing to train you on the other stuff, right?
Yeah, and hospitality helps a lot. So, if you're between things and you're like, I took a front desk hotel job or I'm a barista at Starbucks, that's actually good. You have to be enormous because you are turned on, if you will, 24/7 customer service amongst everything else. So that's actually good. Those are positives.
And on cruise ships, you have to be on.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So obviously, I want to talk about your role as a captain with CRF. Yeah. I've talked about CRF a lot on this podcast just because I love them. And that was, my first scientific diving gig that I ever had. So tell me a little bit about exactly everything that's required of you as a captain for CRF and the unique challenges that you get just working for them.
Yeah, so CRF, Coral Restoration Foundation, they're headquartered in, I guess technically Tavernier, but like Upper Keys. And as a captain, you have to be able to trailer. So truck and trailer, because several of our boats are on trailers since we work all up and down the Keys. So as the captain, you're the one that's going to be showing up in the morning. You're going to do all your safety checks on the boat before it even leaves. And then you also have to be able to do a trailer safety check and double check your truck is good, hook it all up. you help your crew get all the tanks, gear, if we're bringing corals, everything like that. We get that all situated, and then you roll out. So then I'm going to be going to a ramp. I'm putting the boat in, and then it's any other captain job. Once the boat's in the water, you're driving your boat from A to B, still being safe. But as a captain for CRF, especially if we're handling corals, sometimes the divers go down to harvest the corals from the nursery, and I might have to be filling big bins with water so that when they hand up the corals, I've got some place to put them in the water. And when we get somewhere and they're going to outplant them, I'm handing corals into my divers, and then I have to dump all the water. But yeah, and then at the end of the day, you just do it backwards. So dock the boat, put it back on the trailer, drive it back, clean it. and that's basically a typical day. But yeah, we go all up and down the Keys. So everywhere from Key Largo to Key West.
Yeah. And I know you just made it sound very easy compared to what it's really like loading a boat before everybody takes off. But it's pretty hands-on. I remember the first time that I went to Tavernier and helped load the boat, I was like, oh, we're loading it up on the trailer, this petite girl trying to help out and put the tanks up on the boat, and it was pretty intense. I was feeling pretty weak.
Yeah, it's definitely a workout, and everybody works together. My job is to physically drive and maneuver that boat, but my crew is helping me dock. They're helping me put it on the trailer and get it off, and we're all handling tanks and gear. So very much a little science crew.
Yeah. And you're definitely, it sounds like behind the scenes also keeping everything organized when all the divers are going in and out of the water and everything too. Because there is some stuff there, with which corals come from which trees and everything.
Yeah, we keep it together, and the boats are very small. So a lot of times after all the divers are off the boat, I have all this room, and I can kind of organize and move crates and totes around so that when my divers come back up, there's less things for them to trip over, and they can be safe. And so, yeah, I guess there is a little bit that I do before I sit and read a book and wait for my divers to come back.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you feel like, the status of coral in the Key Largo area has changed a lot just in your time of working with CRF?
Well,
plant sites and...
I can back it up even further, because I've been in the Keys since 2013, but I've only worked for CRF since 2018. So I've seen a huge change in our reefs in just that amount of time. Especially Hurricane Irma really, really did a number on us. But there are reefs that you can kind of see where CRF has started working on one end of the reef, but they haven't made it to the other end yet, right? Because we're just kind of moving along. And it's such a huge difference, that end of the reef where we've been working for years. There's healthy little corals. There's more fish. There's literally more fish at that end of the reef than less than half a mile to the other end of the reef. The fishes are hanging out in the corals. So I've definitely seen positive change with putting the little baby corals out there.
Yeah, that's one thing that I feel like was my favorite part of working with CRF, is just that you literally are watching in real time it make a difference. It's especially, when you're putting down corals, it's fish are immediately coming around being like, oh, a new playground. And they're on it. And you're like, oh my gosh, that just happened so fast.
Yeah. But it's really, no, you're so right. It's really exciting. And then we also get to do night dives with CRF, which is not something that our volunteers normally get to go on, because night dives are a whole nother ballgame. That's probably the most stressful thing you can do as a captain, is drive your boat at night towards land. It's going out to the ocean is fine. There's no boats crossing in front of lights for me to miss. It's just deep, dark blackness. We're good. I'll see you. But going back to land with all of the boat lights and then the background of the island, and you have to try to have that depth perception, that's the most nerve-wracking thing. But we go out for spawning because corals spawn at night. So that's also really fun science that I get to be next to.
Yeah, I've always wanted to do one of those coral spawning dives. I haven't ever gotten to. I've only gone on a couple of night dives, but it always kind of makes me nervous because I have bad night vision. So,
just don't drive the boat.
Grandpa, I really like even driving at night kind of freaks me out. I need to get glasses or something, but so I feel like I'm like all cool on the way out there, and then when it actually gets dark, I'm like, I can't see. Am I gonna like come up and like, I don't know. I have nightmares of like hitting my head on the boat or like I don't know.
Oh no, it's actually it's stunning. It's one of my favorite things to do because A, it is cooler. It is not beating Florida sun, and you go out and typically like the way we plan our timing, as you're driving to the site, the sun is setting. So like, point like first it's cooler, second awesome sunset on the water, and then we wait for a little bit and you get to watch the stars come out. If it's the right time of the year, the moon is going to rise, and then the divers go in and I have glow sticks and I put glow sticks on the ladder so you won't bump your head. But yeah, and then I just get to sit out there and like listen for my divers and look at stars, like because there's not a lot of light pollution right offshore, so it's beautiful.
That sounds so relaxing. Yeah, we went out one time when I was working at Lou Key, and we had one of those lights. What's it called?
Like a strobe?
Not a
flashes?
Not a strobe, but it makes a black light.
Oh, yes. A UV light.
A UV light. And so then all of the corals were lighting up and everything. It's so cool. It looks like you're like in someone's room with like, the glow stars or something.
Yeah, it's a total rave party underwater if you bring black lights. It's a really fun thing. We used to do that back in the day when I guided recreational divers on night dives. Don't do that very much anymore. But that'd be one of the things. We'd bring a little black light. Like, you think that's pretty now? And then we'd shine it. It's like, look, it's actually green.
Yeah,
so cool.
And all the little lobsters come out and all the crabs.
Yeah.
So cool. So I definitely want to touch on Dive Heart. So could you tell us a little more about Dive Heart if people haven't heard about it and exactly what you do for them?
Yeah. So Dive Heart, it's all one word, the word dive, the word heart, all together. So there are two things. They have a nonprofit side to them, and then they are a training agency, just like the way PADI, NAUI, SSI are scuba diving training agencies. So is Dive Heart. They're let me tell you training, then the nonprofit will make sense. So our whole goal is to get children, adults, and veterans that have any kind of disabilities, whether that's physical or mental, however it is, into the water, scuba diving as kind of a form of therapy, and to show them that our slogan is imagine the possibilities. A lot of these people have probably been told no for a lot of their life. So we want to be able to work with them in a very safe way and tell them yes. So we have a course for that. We call them adaptive divers. And that's just kind of the umbrella term. And so we have a course that they can go through, but we are not in competition with any of the other agencies. So if you're a PADI instructor, right, you would go through your PADI open water course with that adaptive diver. Like they need to do the skills in order, and they need to be able to complete those specific skills. You're going to teach them the way PADI taught you to teach. But there's going to come a moment, very likely, where they won't be able to do it alone. So they're going to need assistance. And that's when they fall out of a PADI certification and into a Dive Heart certification, because we typically have to have at least 2 trained buddies. So this is the other part of the certifications we do, to help that adaptive diver accomplish those skills safely. So some of them, let's say they can't kick, right? They might be a paraplegic, so they do not have use of their legs. So somebody might hold onto their tank and be their motor. And then the other buddy would be in front of them to communicate and point stuff out and talk to that other buddy as well. And so we also have certifications for able-bodied divers to be able to provide those buddy assistance. So you can have your basic adaptive dive buddy, that's an open water diver with no experience working with adaptive divers. Then we have an advanced buddy, and that's someone that's rescue or higher. And you'll have to get some experience working with the adaptive divers, and then there's an instructor level as well. And the nonprofit side is we offer as many programs for free to these adaptive divers as possible. So they're confined water, so pool is global. The company is actually based in Chicago, and then Florida and Malaysia are probably our two other most active places in the world, right? So international. And so they have this nonprofit side where we're able to cover all the costs of these individuals coming to this program, and we'll have a bunch of volunteers that are all trained buddies to let them get in the water, kind of like a DSD, where you have no training and you just want to see if you can breathe underwater. We call it a Dive Heart Scuba experience, so a DSE. And that's the nonprofit side of that. So me, what do? I am the head of training for the whole agency, and it is a remote position. So I'm behind the scenes, processing certifications, creating like your instructor slates, helping do revisions on the manual, helping write text and copy on our website, all kinds of that, working with standards and keeping things safe, hosting webinars for our instructors, and all kinds of stuff. That's what I do. So yeah, that's kind of what Dive Heart is in a nutshell.
It's so cool. I can't imagine just, what people always say about being an instructor in general is just, the look that you get to see on people's face when they finally get it, and that's like the most rewarding part. So I can't even imagine, take that one step further, and maybe it's someone who hasn't gotten to walk, or just anything like that. And then being able to see them get to do that,
Yeah.
Probably rewarding.
It is so rewarding. I do sometimes get in the water, and I've helped on many of their trips. That's one of the things that's really cool about Dive Heart is we even take ourselves a step forward, and we coordinate trips, global trips that these adaptive divers can go on, because we've got a bunch of trained buddies on the trip to take them diving. And you will see more like grown adults cry, happy tears you've ever seen in your life. Like it's so healing to do these trips, and just being a part of it. They love spending their vacations that way. Like they literally pay to go on vacation to take these people diving, and they might have never met them before. And that's what they do with their time. So it's cool. So good. One of my favorites. They were down for a couple of days, and they were in the Florida Keys. That's how I originally met Dive Heart. They did trips to the Keys, and I got paired with this one individual, adaptive diver, and I dove with him several times throughout the week. And on our last dive, he had a little Etch-a-Sketch, but it's not an Etch-a-Sketch. It's like magnet with a pen. They're white, and they have those little honeycomb things, and you can write with them underwater. I forget what they're called.
But I know what you're talking about.
Right? So that's what he used as a slate, so that he could write on it with a little magnet dust and then swipe it clean without erasing pencil. And so he'd been asking me the whole time. He'd be like, "What fish?" Or he would say "angel?" ? Because he loved identifying the fishes and everything. It was so fun to communicate with him that way. And then it's towards the end of the dive, and I said, it's time to go up. And he asked for a minute, and he was scribbling on his little slate, and he turned it around, and it said, "Thank you." Aww. And I just lost it.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, so you just have those moments of cried underwater many times. And it's like, I just want to underwater hug you.
Aww.
Right? So.
That's that makes my heart really warm. I love that.
Yeah.
How many Dive Heart new scuba divers have you guys trained?
Uh, Almost 500 between, and that's everything. That's adaptive divers all the way up to instructor. But I would say there's almost 500 certifications out there in the world for dive heart. And they only started their training agency part at the end of November of 2014. So we're just going to say 2015. So that's in about 5 years, about 500 certifications and growing. We were expecting to do almost 200 this year, but then COVID happened. So this year, we're just going to kind of like pretend 2020 didn't exist.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of us are doing.
Yeah, but our instructors are still out there active. Some of them are in safe places where they can still teach courses and offer very one-on-one individual programs. So they're still out there and they're itching to get back in the water.
That's awesome. You know, I mean, although all of us didn't get to go on as many adventures this year, I do feel like it gave everyone kind of a chance to maybe take a breath, like take a step back and like, you know, tighten everything up.
Yeah.
So it gives us a chance to like make sure we're going, like once we are able to go again and do all the adventures and things, we're doing it better, you know?
Exactly. And for me, because when I go on expeditions, I'm gone for 3 to 5 weeks at a time. And then I come home, hopefully for at least 3 weeks before I need to leave again. Different parts of the year are busy or less busy. And so I'm trying to balance like dive heart all the time, always. Like dive heart goes on expeditions, days we have in port, and everybody's like, let's go get a beer at the bar. I'm like, is there a coffee shop with Wi-Fi? I need Wi-Fi. and I'm trying to do that. So being able to have an entire season at home has really let me fully plug back in, and we're able to move a lot of things up and forward that we would not have been able to if, you know, COVID wasn't happening.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I know, you know, myself and I've seen other people as well, just getting their online presence, you know, stronger and getting more educational stuff online is helpful too, you know, because then you can get that story out there and get more people, you know, ready to be certified.
Exactly. I love that part. And that's why I think podcasts are really cool, because it kind of gives us the opportunity, no matter where we are in the world, to be like, hey, this is cool. You should learn about it.
Yeah, definitely. And it just connects everyone. I love that. That's like my favorite thing about this podcast has just been, you know, connecting with people like you. And then, you know, I get other people telling me, you need to have this person on and you need, you know, so I'm like connecting with all these people that we all share the same passion. It's really awesome.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I know we talked about Amazon Smile earlier. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about that and how they can give back to all the things we just talked about?
Yes. So a lot of us were stuck at home, and we're trying to not go into buildings if we can avoid it. So there's a lot of Amazon shopping happening, especially, I don't know, my household is definitely Amazon Prime and shopping all the time. And one of the things that you guys can do with your Amazon shopping is you can actually choose nonprofits to give back to. So instead of typing in Amazon.com, if you type in smile.amazon.com and bookmark that instead, it's the entire Amazon website. But now you have the ability to choose a nonprofit. So you could choose Dive Heart, you could choose Coral Restoration Foundation, or hundreds of others. If you're a nonprofit, you can sign your nonprofit up to be a choice. And once you've set your account up to support your preferred nonprofit, now as long as you're making your purchases on the smile.amazon website, every purchase you make, Amazon, the company, is going to donate a portion of that purchase back to your supported nonprofit. So it's not your money that's being donated. It's Amazon's money. So they get the tax write-off. But still, it's something very passive you can do. And you can set it up on the app too. Like I typically shop on the app, and you can set it up there as well. And once it's set up, it's set up. And, you know, if you're like, oh, I can't pick a nonprofit, then set an alarm or a reminder in your calendar and change it every month. And it's really cool because, you know, when you're logged in, you can click one of the tabs back there, and you can actually see your impact. So it'll be like, hey, so far your shopping has ended up donating this much money back towards your nonprofit. So it's a really cool thing that I think a lot of people could be taking advantage of during all the time, but especially COVID times.
Yeah, and especially right now when people might not have extra money to give to nonprofits. I know that a lot of nonprofits are kind of hurting right now just because people have had to pull their donations that they normally give because they've lost their job or been furloughed. So this is a way that, you can still give back, even if it's not directly coming out of your, pocketbook because you need that right now. So
exactly. Of all businesses in the global universe right now, Amazon's doing okay. So they've got that money, and this is a way to let your money work for something you care about. So yeah, I'm a huge supporter of that.
I love that. So I'll put complete instructions for how to donate to Dive Hard and to CRF in the episode notes. And is there anything else you want to talk about before we sign off?
I mean, nothing super particular. I'm just really excited that this has happened. And I guess I want to tell your listeners, there's lots of free webinars out there, Google free webinars. It's such a neat thing to do to help you network and remember that the world is still out there and it's still cool. So I know that the National Marine Sanctuaries does really awesome webinars, and I like going to those. Just helps you. You're like, oh, I can kind of explore the world without leaving my home, and it helps me. It helps me cope. So maybe it can help you guys cope too.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, it's been so great to have you on. I'm so happy that we got to connect and that I got to hear your story.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fantastic.
Awesome. And hopefully we'll get to dive together soon.
Yeah, I would love that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Rachel.
You're very welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast and learned some valuable information about the journey of conservation. This is a constant process of learning, growth, and understanding, so I look forward to chatting with Rachel again. Please leave a review if you can and go to www.eco-consciousdiver.com to check out all other podcasts, resources, and everything we've got going on there. See you next week.